Football, 100 million simulations to Football King. Episode 91, Manchester City Derby, The Return of the King. At 2200 hours Dragon Time, 1500 hours UK local time, on September 11th, Manchester City drew 1-1 at home to Everton in the fifth round of the Premier League that began at the Manchester Stadium. Dragon Country fans, and even British fans, expected to see the Dragon Country Derby, and did not get what they wanted. Lee Tai, who is still recuperating from injuries on Everton's side, did not enter the big list. In this game, Su Long was closely defended, but still scored one goal, once again becoming the best player of the game. Subsequently, the Premier League officially announced that Long was named the Player of the Month in August. In the selection, Su Long defeated Arsenal's Henry, Liverpool's Gerrard and Chelsea's Joe Cole. With 6 goals and 2 assists, he was named the Player of the Month in August. The news was announced in the major media, and Manchester City fans were immediately excited. For the fans of the next-door neighbour Manchester United, Manchester City fans have more proud capital. Your Rooney, £27 million? My family Su Long is the best in August. Your Manchester United striker is powerful? My family Su Long is the best in August. You Manchester United superstars? My family Su Long is the best in August. Manchester United fans gritted their teeth in disgust and were ashamed just before waiting for the 7th round to snow. However, Manchester City fans are now very confident. You want to be humiliated before the 7th round of the game, have you asked Su Long? Soon, the news that Su Long was named the Player of the Month in August also spread back to the Dragon Kingdom. The whole Dragon Kingdom was boiling. As for the transfer of Rooney, the son of England, few people in the Dragon Kingdom paid much attention. Su Long's exclusive battle song, Dragon, also spread to the Tianya forum of the Dragon Kingdom. Su Long hat trick, fans write songs to give. Inside is written is Su Long's battle report in Liverpool. The description is slightly mysterious, but the fans are addicted to watching it, and finally attach the exclusive battle song Dragon copied by international students. Now in the football forum of Dragon Country, there are discussions about Su Long regarding Su Long's experience in the Dragon Kingdom period. All of them were dug up. At his football school in Jinmen, this year's enrollment has exploded. Many parents who had planned to let their children play football have given up the football school in their own city and specially come to Jinmen to apply for the football school where Su Long once studied, thinking that their son can become the next Su Long. Football commentators in Dragon Country said after the game that Su Long's performance after landing in the Premier League was world-class, scoring 5 goals in the first 2 games, and no player has ever been able to do it. With the discussion hot, Su Long was out of the circle. This is also indispensable to Su Long's original tough appearance, and many fans of Su Long's robust and inflated body are fascinated by Su Long's appearance. Su Long's heat level, directly out of the football circle. Many fans who originally only watched basketball in the NBA had previously said that Dragon Country football was not good, and now they are watching the Premier League, just because of Su Long. Many fans who originally only liked to discuss Kobe's picturesque beauty now often mention Su Long's hat trick. Dragon Country's football and basketball are not separated. In fact, the past football is too weak, so weak that many fans are not in the mood to pay attention. Now that Su Long's horizontal appearance has appeared, it is different. Winning the Asian Cup and landing in the Premier League hat-trick have attracted everyone's attention. For example, Sia Mao, the little king of Hong Kong City, said that he is a fan of Su Long, and when he plays football games, his favorite choice is the Manchester City football team, hoping to have the opportunity to cooperate with Su Long in the future. For example, Zhou Mao, the little heavenly king in Wanwan City, said in the media that Su Long was his idol, and he was already writing a song called Dragon War Night and wanted to give it to Su Long. Not only the Dragon Kingdom, but also the Chinese circles around the world, the name Su Long is on fire. In particular, the management meeting of Major League Soccer in the beautiful country will meet to discuss whether there is an opportunity to introduce Su Long to play in the Major League Soccer in the beautiful country. Even in Hajima's Soccer Boys World Youth Championship, there is a new Dragon Country striker named Sun Xiaolong. At 2200 hours on September 18, 1500 hours local time in the United Kingdom, the 6th round of Manchester City's away game against Crystal Palace, Su Long was closely defended by the other side, so he turned into a passer and drew 1-1 with Crystal Palace. In the past month, Manchester City have won 3 wins and 3 draws and scored 12 points, and the third-placed team owner Wardle is very satisfied, and Keegan's coaching position has become secure, at least in the Manchester newspaper and the Manchester Evening News. There are no more small articles asking Keegan to leave class. In the blink of an eye, the time has come for the 7th round of the Premier League. Rooney, who was longing for Manchester United fans, finally made his debut in the 6th round, scoring a goal in the home game against Liverpool to help Manchester United win over Liverpool. At the same time, the same young C. Luo gave 2 assists and was named the best in the game. Various media, newspapers, and periodicals have said that the Red Devils are going to recover. Ferdinand makes a perfect comeback, the King returns. Manchester United welcome the return of the core. Right immortal splendor. Ferdinand United savior. Red Devils collective recovery. Editors of various newspapers and periodicals have said that the next game, the Manchester City Derby, Manchester United, which has recovered, has a greater chance of winning. Then there are a number of editors listing various reasons. Manchester United's 5 wins. Manchester United's reasons for inevitable victory. The key to Manchester United can win. Su Long felt that Manchester United at this time was the password for traffic. At 2200 hours Dragon time on September 25, 1500 hours UK local time, Manchester City Stadium was full. Nearly 50,000 Manchester City fans are waiting to sing the latest song, Dragon, for Su Long, waiting for the game to start. Today's Manchester City Derby is a game that every Manchester United fan and Manchester City fan wants to win. 80% of the Manchester City Stadium are Manchester City fans and the remaining 20% are Manchester United fans. In previous years, the number of Manchester United fans who watched away from home often reached 30%. But this year the situation is different. Manchester City fans see the hope of the rise, have come to the scene to support their home team Manchester City, so the tickets are sold out very early. So Manchester United fans, as away fans, can't buy that many tickets. In the away locker room, Ferguson knocked on the tactical board and said, "Ferdinand, you keep an eye on Su Long for me. Don't give him the slightest chance to play, understand?" Ferdinand nodded and said, "No problem." Ferguson groaned and said, "He's similar to the character of the free man in the front court. If he wanders somewhere else, Oshie, Giggs, and Keane, you guys are on." Keane sneered and said, "Sir, I'll give him an unforgettable derby." Ferguson looked at Keane and said, "Remember not to shovel, you have to remember Gerald's lessons. Finally, don't underestimate Su Long, he is Manchester City's attacking finisher. As long as he is strangled, Manchester City will not be too much of a threat." The crowd shouted, "Got it, Mr. Coach." The young C. Luo had a look of envy in his eyes. "I heard that Su Long has unlimited offensive power in Manchester City, is an offensive finisher, can run freely in the front court, and shoot at random times. How nice it would be if I had such privileges myself. In this game, I'm going to perform well and let Mr. Ferguson see that I'm not worse than Rooney, no worse than Su Long." Soon, under the leadership of the referee team, Manchester United players and Manchester City players have entered the stadium one after another, and this evening, the Red Devils Manchester Devils who play at home are wearing the iconic red game uniform, while Manchester City is sky blue. Battle song up. The whole Manchester City fans were singing the Manchester City song. At this time, tens of millions of fans in Longwa are watching the live broadcast of the Premier League, which has become a daily program for Longwa fans. Being able to see Su Long's matches on CCTV5 every week is the happiest thing of the week for Dragon Country fans. The camera moves from the Manchester United starter all the way to the Manchester City players. Suddenly, the resolute face of a young player with an oriental atmosphere came into view. Thousands of fans shouted in amazement. "Dragon Kingdom, Su Long family. Hey, kid is dad, it's coming, the game is getting ready to start." Good grin. Su dad took a plate of melon seeds and put them on the coffee table, and the two couples began to sniff the melon seeds and watch their son's game. "Now the sun over there is so fierce." "Yes, it's 3 p.m. over there now." "Oh, that's good, don't have to play at night, I don't know how my son is doing." Su dad said while sniffing the melon seeds, "Very good, the first month to get the best player of the month, it should be the age record of the best player of the month." Mama Su rolled her eyes and said, "Who cares about these records? I mean my son is doing well in Manchester. When your son grows up, what are you worried about?" Su dad secretly thought in his heart, someone on the forum broke the news that his son and his girlfriend were living together, this matter, or don't tell her, lest she bother her son. My son is now grown up, has his own life, and has his own ideas. Su Pa came out of his thoughts and looked at the TV. With the referee's whistle, the Manchester City Derby officially begins. The first to kick off was Manchester City, who played at home. After Su Long kicked the ball to Fowler, he went to the front court of Manchester United. Seeing that it was difficult for his teammates to pass the ball out in midfield, Su Long withdrew to receive the pass from his teammate. The ball then came to Su Long's face. Su Long had been constantly observing the movements around him, protecting the ball in the safest posture. Unexpectedly, a huge force behind him rushed over, Su Long's whole body was knocked out, and the ball flew out of bounds. Iron Man feature activated, extremely minor injury. Su Long was lying on the ground, looking up, and the person who hit him was the famous evil man of Manchester United. Wright quickly pulled Su Long up. "Su, are you okay?" Su Long shook his head. At this time, Keane also walked over to Su Long and smiled slightly. "Rookie, welcome to the Premier League." Su Long smiled and said, "The last person who talked to me like this is still lying in the hospital." When Keane heard this, his face suddenly changed. He glared at Su Long fiercely, and went to catch the ball. Just now, the referee awarded Su Long a goal out of bounds. Su Long coldly looked at Keane's back and meditated in his heart. Simulated football life. Since you want to do things today, then make a big one. Episode 92. The loophole of the game, creating a penalty. Do you use the football career simulator? Use once to consume 1,000 achievement points. Yes. In 2004, you joined Premier League side Manchester City for a transfer fee of £10 million. Choose your life experience. Su Long's mind immediately appeared in the memory of his life experience. In 2021, the game when Su Long retired, OE retained his Bundesliga place that season, and his teammates had two other Dragon Country players. In 2009, Su Long joined Real Madrid for £36 million and became a member of the second phase of the Galaxy battleship. In this life experience, Su Long learned his lesson, joined Real Madrid a year late, and caught up with the best era of Real Madrid. However, due to lack of strength, it was abandoned in Real Madrid for 4 years, and 13 years, for £20 million, to transfer to Bayern Munich. In 2006, the World Cup was held, and there was no Dragon national team. Su Long is a little surprised. He joined the national team and also entered the World Cup. In mid-November 2004, the Dragon Country 7-0 Hong Kong and Hong Kong teams, but failed to reach the third round of the World Cup Asian qualifiers. Su Long frowned. What the hell is going on in this World Cup? It was actually eliminated in the Asian qualifiers. But now is not the time to care about that. Now that the game is being played, watch it again after playing this game. Soon came the game in front of Su Long's eyes. In this game, Rooney and Ronaldo did not score, and at this time, Rooney and Ronaldo were still two young people. The goal was scored by Fanny, the already famous king of the penalty area, who won the game 2-1. 13 of those goals was a penalty. Since Su Long was heavily targeted in this game, he did not score. Number 16, Keane has repeatedly made rough moves against himself, committing a foul once. Number 11, Giggs. Number 22, O'Shea is also fierce to himself. Number 14, Smith, a young and grumpy striker, fouled himself twice, and went straight off the field in the 85th minute. Nima, a game was dueled, right? In this game, the referee's penalty scale is very large, and many actions are not blown. In his football career, Su Long did not adapt to such a penalty scale in the first half. After the two sides became angry in the second half, the referee's penalty was tightened again, resulting in Su Long getting a yellow card just at the beginning of the second half, after which Su Long kicked his hands and feet. But throughout the game, the referee was very strict about the action in the box, which is why United were able to get a penalty. Now Su Long knew how to kick. The first half is fierce. Su Long is not a person who sits and waits to die, and since you want to foul me, I am not welcome. Then, take the ball into the box as much as possible. Thinking of this, Su Long immediately looked at Keane, who had just committed a crime against him. Keane was preparing to catch the ball when Su Long immediately rushed over, and just as the ball passed, Su Long even took the ball and kicked Keane. Keane screamed and the ball was broken. The ball reached Wright's feet, and Wright was stunned to see that the referee did not blow the penalty before starting to attack, which resulted in taking the ball out of the bottom line under defense. Su Long applauded and encouraged the team, and Wright raised his hand to show me. Keane approached Su Long and said in a deep voice, "Boy, you have to follow me, you wait." Su Long was not vain at all, but there was no nonsense, and the next time he approached Keane, Keane was alert enough to pass the ball back. CCVV5's teacher Lou smiled and said, "Our young players in the Dragon Kingdom often lack the fierceness of daring to fight like Su Long. You see, Su Long, facing Keane is not vain at all. Now Keane sees him approaching, he has to pass the ball back." Jean Jun also smiled and said, "It is true, Su Long was born with a domineering spirit. Before in the Asian Cup, didn't the Nichijima media call Su Long the Tyrannosaurus of our Dragon Kingdom? I think the name is quite apartment." On the pitch, Cristiano Ronaldo created consecutive free kicks and corner kicks on the left side, but each time was cleared by Manchester City's backline and David James. Su Long retreated to help his teammates defend, taking advantage of the time of the dead ball. Su Long said to Captain Dunn and several other defenders, "This game should not let the opponent into the box as much as possible. Even if it's a foul on the outside of the box, it's better than hitting the box, and it's too dangerous for Fanny on the other side to go into the box." And we destroyed their attack outside the box and could play a good defensive counterattack. Su Long knew that the referee's decision in midfield in the first half was very loose and the penalty in the penalty area was very strict, but his teammates did not know. So Su Long used another term to discuss with his teammates. Fanny's deterrent was still there, so in the 10th minute, Scholes on the United side attacked from the left, which was destroyed by Dunn outside the box. Dunn moved a lot, but he was surprised to find that the referee didn't blow the penalty. Dunn is experienced after all, and when he saw the success of the broken ball, the referee did not react at all, so he passed a long pass to the other side. Beautiful long pass, although a little more powerful, but the flank is fast. Wright ran fast, got rid of Manchester United's Neville, and broke into the box. This is a wonderful opportunity. Wright passed on. Nice cross-leg. The ball came to the center of the penalty area. Su Long. Yes. Su Long fell. Is it going to be a penalty? Let's look at the slow motion, and Ferdinand does have hand movements. Su Long sat on the grass and Wright came over and pulled him up. The referee walked over slowly and put his hand in his jacket pocket. Manchester United's players showed their hands innocently, especially Ferdinand, with a look of wrongdoing, and kept saying that they had not touched Su Long. Su Long, this is obviously a dive. Manchester City's players are going to separate them and keep them from putting pressure on the referee. The referee was professional and certainly unaffected, straight out a yellow God of War card and pointed to the penalty spot. The fans at Manchester City's home stadium immediately cheered, and the exclusive battle song, Dragon, was sung again. Penalty. In the 15th minute, Su Long made a penalty. Let's see who will take the penalty. It's Su Long. Now the core of Manchester City's attack is undoubtedly Su Long, and Su Long's performance has conquered Manchester City. Su Long stood 3 meters away from the penalty spot, his whole body stretched, his legs were spread out, his hands were crossed at the waist. This position is very imposing. It's time to start. Su Long shot. Entered, Carroll misjudged, and the ball went in. Su Long first took a 1-goal lead for Manchester City. We can hear the whole audience is singing for Su Long. This is a song made specifically for Su Long. The English translation is a dragon from the east, full of strength, taking out the opponent's back line, scoring like drinking water. Well, the football songs of British fans are so simple and rude. The two teachers of CCVV5 are full of smiles, and now Manchester City is the home of all the Dragon fans. Su Long scored, and they also feel happy and happy. The same is true of the Dragon Nation fans in front of the TV. It's exciting to be able to take the lead against Manchester United. At Su Long's house, Su Dad was picking up melon seeds on the ground, with a look of resentment on his face. Just now Su Long scored, Su Mama was excited for a moment and knocked the melon seeds over. It turned out that Su Dad wanted to pick up the melon seeds on the ground. This life cannot be lived. The United players were a little confused until they reserved. How 15 minutes to fall behind? This script is not right. Manchester United fans in front of the TV were even angrier. £80 million frontcourt combination, that's all? Su Long opposite Nyama is only £10 million. Ferguson, on the sidelines, chewing gum, sat on the bench, a calm face, looking at the court. He looked very calm and didn't seem to be worried about falling behind at all. If it were written for the editor of the British tabloid, it would definitely mean that Sir Fowler was backward and did not change his face. But on closer inspection, his hands on the armrest were clenched and seemed to be trembling slightly. After United's serve, the attack became more intense. In the 18th minute, Cristiano Ronaldo's cross from the right side of the penalty area was released by Mills, before the penalty line. In the 21st minute, Bosvelt and Jordan broke their eyebrows in a scramble with Ronaldo and Saha, respectively. In the 23rd minute, Heinz's long-range shot from 25 yards on the left was confiscated by James. In 26 minutes, City finally waited for an opportunity. Sibilski made a long pass from the left and Su Long opened up Hill West from 14 yards in front of the goal with a header. But the ball is not 997 less. The fans immediately stood up, and then the cheers suddenly stopped. Without a goal, the fans cheered up and sang their own battle song again. Su Long shook his head. The confrontation given by the opposing defender Sylvester was still a little bigger. He could not shoot very comfortably, and his accurate shooting characteristics were also affected. In the 29th minute, Ronaldo broke through on the left, but his long-range shot from outside the box was destroyed by Dunn. Si Lua wiped his sweat. The confrontation of this game is a bit big. He glanced at Su Long. How could he feel that this guy was very relaxed and leisurely? In the 33rd minute, United's tactical corner kick from the left was blocked by Scholl's shot from 25 yards by Bosvelter. On the 38th minute, Saha received a pass from Gary Neville and crossed from the right side of the penalty area, and Mills made a key flying shovel to break the line. In the 42nd minute, Su Long once again got a good chance, but he was picked up by Keane from behind, and there was no way but to pass back to his teammates. The referee also did not have any indication. Su Long knew very well that if he wanted to make a difference in the first half, he would have to break into the box. Matches outside the box are not okay. In stoppage time in the first half, Cristiano Ronaldo was shoveled by Mills outside the penalty area and swept the ball out of the sideline. Then Cristiano Ronaldo sent a sideline ball. Mills broke the ball from behind a big move, but the referee did not award a penalty. Dunn grabbed the ball and immediately launched a quick counter-attack, with a big foot kicking the ball into the back of the United side. The fans stood up and cheered like waves. Dunn's long biography. Very precise passing, Wright ran fast, all the way to the bottom line. The bottom line passes into the restricted area. Ferdinand is inside the penalty area. Fowler's header Ferry, Su Long's chest stops the ball. He volleyed, it's in. Su Long swept across with one kick and felt his foot kick the ball out. The next second, someone shoved it down from behind. Iron Man feature activated. Minor injuries. Su Long fell to the ground and heard the volcanic cheers of the fans in the audience. Episode 93, Make Kai twice. Su Long was seriously injured? Su Long didn't want to get up, so he lay down on the lawn. Nice volley. Sylvester's sliding shovel is slow. 2-0, Su Long is the king of Manchester City, once again to make a comeback. Why say it again? Because Su Long is always in the second place, or a hat trick. You see how many goals he has scored this season. Already scored 9 goals. The Premier League is trembling over this 18-year-old young player. Wow. Oh, Su Long was lying in the penalty area, posing in a big font. Is this a celebration of the goal while he is asleep? It's also so much fun to celebrate. Wright also ran over and lay down with Su Long. The referee is here. He gave Wright and Su Long a yellow God of War card, haha. Wright was dumbfounded, and quickly climbed up, and the stall hand said, Mr. Referee, I didn't do anything. The referee immediately said, you have to respect your opponent, pull him up. Su Long was picked up by Ray Tra, turned his foot and said with a bitter smile to the referee, I'm not celebrating, I was just injured, I was shoveled by the one, you should also see, I need treatment now. Su Long was really injured. Just now the system prompts that it is a mild injury, and then when lying down, I feel a faint pain in my ankle. Now get up and walk 2 steps. My ankles hurt even more. The referee frowned and immediately summoned the paramedics on the sidelines to come over. Manchester City's team doctor rushed in and sprayed Su Long's ankle. Keane and Ferdinand were complaining to the referee, pointing at Su Long and saying that Su Long was delaying time. The referee communicated with the two and said that in the stoppage time after 90 minutes, the lost time would be returned. Keane was furious, this kid is so cunning. The head coach on the sidelines, Keegan, saw that Su Long was injured and walked over with great concern. Su, are you all right? Su Long moved his ankles, frowned and said, it's okay. Su Long was injured, which should have been caused by Sylvester's sliding shovel just now. He went off to the court for treatment and replaced him with Sean Wright's brother Bradley Wright, and the two brothers were on the court together. The confrontation in the Premier League is relatively strong. Su Long must be careful, I hope he is fine. Su Long hadn't even returned to the dressing room when the phone rang. Son, what's wrong with you? Mom's anxious voice came out of the phone. Su Long smiled and said, it's okay, it's a little uncomfortable, and the result is that the head coach is too nervous and let me rest. Is it really all right? It's really okay, you don't have to worry. Su Long had just hung up the phone when Chloe's phone came again. Oh, just now my mother called over, it's okay, I'm in the locker room, treating Mr. Team Doctor, watching the live game. Well, you're going to pick me up, okay? Soon, Su Long hung up the phone. The team doctor arranged ice for Su Long, and Su Long felt that his ankles were much better. It was originally moderately injured, but the Iron Man traits were reduced by 50%. Minor injuries should not be a big problem. Although the injury was reduced by 50%, it was still a moderate injury on the surface, so it led to a misjudgment by the team doctor. Keegan was very worried about his injury, and then he was put off the field. Su Long watched the whole game in the dressing room. After Su Long's demise, Manchester United's attack was more fierce, while Manchester City turned from attack to defense, and the Wright brothers were more retreating to make up for the defense and put up a bus formation. The British head coach still has the ability to learn. Since Mourinho took charge of Chelsea this season, he has played twice in the Premier League, plus the Champions League final in May, and Keegan has also studied a round of bus formations. Now it's 2-0 lead, which is just right. Su Long, as a bystander, seems that several strikers on United's side are not very compatible, although they add up to be very expensive, but 1 + 1 is less than 2, and it is not too good to play. In the end, after United wasted 24 shooting opportunities, none of them broke through the Manchester City gate, and the referee blew the whistle at the end of the game. Manchester City beat Manchester United 2-0 at home. The Manchester City fans cheered. The United players walked into the players' aisle with their heads bowed. Ferguson was also silent, and after watching the whole game, he was thinking about how to deal with the team's forward group. The team's forward group is too bloated, and everyone's responsibilities are not clear, often overlapping and conflicting, resulting in no way to play a good role. However, at the press conference, Ferguson slammed Manchester City's bus formation in the second half, saying, "This conservative and ugly tactic should not appear in the Premier League," and Keegan showed a victorious smile and was very dismissive of Ferguson's statement. The Manchester City players returned to the dressing room, all smiling and humming songs, very happy. It had been a long time since I had won such a hard time in the Manchester City derby. It was 2-0 at halftime and held to the end. They couldn't help but smile when they saw the 80 million forward combination on the other side with a depressed look. The first thing the crowd did when they came in was to ask Su Long how he was. Su Long was bandaging the team doctor, smiled and said, "It's okay, you can still walk normally." After half an hour of timely treatment, Su Long felt that he was already very good, just an ordinary strain, and it should be no problem to rest for a few days. Su Long came out of the locker room, his injured left foot tied in a bandage and wearing slippers, and walked through the mixed interview area. Immediately, countless reporters greeted Su Long with microphones. Su Long saw the reporter of CCVV5 and took the initiative to accept the interview of CCVV5. The reporter asked, "Su Long, congratulations on your second success today, helping the team win the game. All our fans are very concerned. How are you injured now?" Su Long said with Chinese, "Very good, it's all right, thank you for your concern. Don't worry, you see, I have no problem walking. The team doctor said that I can recover within a week. I estimate it will be 2 or 3 days." The British reporter next to him was dumbfounded when he heard Su Long's Chinese. Su Long smiled, answered a question from a British reporter, and left. The young female reporter's eyes lit up. Every time Su passes by here to be interviewed by reporters, her answers are very gentle, and this time she was injured is also the same gentle, good gentleman. Another female reporter said, "Don't be stupid, hurry up and ask the Dragon Country reporter what Su Long just answered with Chinese." "Yeah, I almost forgot." Su Long entered the parking lot and soon found his own Mercedes-Benz. Chloe hurriedly got out of the car, helped Su Long, and said, "Su, are you okay?" "It's okay, don't be so afraid, you see I'm walking as normal. The team doctor said this is an ordinary strain, rest for 2 days." Chloe said incredulously, "Really?" Su Long saw Chloe's appearance and smiled. "How can it be the same as mommy?" Su Long scraped Chloe's nose and said, "Really, let's go." Due to the injury, Su Long slept early at night. The next morning, Su Long was preparing to go out to the supermarket with Chloe to buy some food, but found that someone had arrived. Mama Su came over by herself. Su Long was dumbfounded. "Mom, how did you get here?" Mama Su was also dumbfounded when she saw Chloe, and then showed a kind smile. "Hello beautiful girl." Mama Su glanced at Su Long and said, "You hurry up and translate." Chloe blushed, and when she saw Su Long's reaction, she knew that this woman was Su Long's mother, a little confused. Su Long hurriedly translated for the two of them. Chloe said a little shyly, "Hello aunt. It's really pretty, you little boy." Mama Su glanced at Su Long, then looked at Su Long's feet and said, "How are your feet?" Su Long knew at a glance that his mother was worried about himself, so he immediately came to find himself. "It's all right, come, I'll help you put your luggage down, and then let's go to the supermarket." Mama Su nodded and said, "Well, I brought some herbs here and cooked bone broth for you." Chloe's face was slightly red, and she listened quietly to Su Long and Su Mama talking and thought that after the aunt left, she must Su Long teach her Chinese. Su Long drank bone broth for 3 days, and the system finally prompted him to be completely healed. Mama Su said that her bone broth was still something. Su Long rolled his eyes. And Chloe praised the rice made by Mama Su for being so delicious that she had to learn to cook Dragon national dishes. Su Long also did not expect that the relationship between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law did not contradict because of the difference in nationality and language between the two people, but the relationship between the two was too good. Originally, when Su Long thought that the two could live together in harmony, Su Mama said that she was going back to the Dragon Kingdom. "I'm going back, don't bother the two of you, Su Long, I tell you, you and other girls, you have to be good to other girls, we Su family do not have bad men, you know." After sending off Mama Su, Chloe sulked and asked Su Long if he had upset Mama Su. Sue Long cried and laughed. No, she said not to disturb our young people. I think she misses my father. Although Sue Long has always claimed to be very good, the injury has recovered. However, in the first round of the UEFA Cup on September 28, Manchester City took on the Soviet Premier League giants away and lost 2-0, and Sue Long did not play. This led to the outside world suspecting that Sue Long was lying. Many sports media have begun to speculate whether Sue Long's injury is very serious. There are even British tabloids that have begun to write novels saying that Sauron has left Manchester for the Royal Brompton Hospital in London to prepare for surgery to treat the pregnancy. Finally, it was also written that the Asian people, the body of the Dragon Country people, cannot adapt to the Premier League arena, and the fall of Sue Long, a genius, proves that no matter how talented the Asian is, they cannot play in the top league. Sue Long felt that these tabloid reporters should be sent to Longwa to write online novels, and it was too wasteful to write small newspapers. Due to the sudden disappearance of Sue Long, the managers of various clubs who have recently paid attention to him, the giants of other leagues, Bayern, Real Madrid, Barca, AC, international scouts, have also temporarily taken their eyes off the table. There are not too many talented players like this who are injured and scrapped. Maybe Sue Long is also one of the shooting stars. Ferguson put down the newspaper and shook his head. Is Sue Long such a glass human figure? In the last game, Ferguson seemed to see the young Cantona. Ferguson is already preparing to buy Sue Long with super money next season. If this is really the result, it would be a pity. Episode 94, The Return of the King, the best of the game. Not only the British tabloids, but also similar remarks appeared on the Dragon Forum. It can only be said that gossip Shaubian exists in every country. No, Sue Long was seriously injured like this? Oh, too dazzling performance, being targeted. Our Dragon Kingdom is a huge loss. Even Su Gao, as well as his teammates in the national team, have called and sent messages to inquire. Sue Long was also crying and laughing. Gossip is harmful. By this time, Sue Long had returned to the Manchester City training base and was examined by the team doctor. Keegan said seriously, "How about Sue's feet?" The team doctor examined it for a long time and finally said in surprise, "It's amazing. Sue's recovery speed is beyond our imagination. His body is amazing. He recovered so quickly that he had no problem with his ankle." Keegan looked at the team doctor suspiciously and said, "Really?" Manchester City's away rival in the 10th round of the Premier League was Southampton. Southampton manager Strone was relieved to see the newspaper saying that Sue Long was seriously injured and should be difficult to play in the next game. Southampton this season so far, 2 wins, 1 draw and 5 losses, only 7 minutes, is already the penultimate second. A victory is urgently needed. Manchester City, which has lost its main scorer, is the most suitable opponent. All sports newspapers, sports media gave pre-match predictions for the 8th round, said that Southampton would get 3 points at home. Sue Long is not there. Manchester City is like a hunting dog without teeth. These 3 points are very stable until the last day before the game. Manchester City announced the player list. Sue Long's name is on the starting list. The whole of Manchester boiled, and so did the whole Dragon Kingdom. Sue Long is back. The reporters of the Manchester and the Manchester Evening News wanted to curse. When they went to the interview yesterday, they also said that Sue Long's situation was still unclear. As a result, it will be on the launch list today. Is this teasing us journalists? Now the reporters in charge of this section of the various newspapers and media are no longer able to interview Manchester City and Sue Long himself. It is up to the reporter himself, based on tomorrow's roster of players, to write a prediction for tomorrow's game. Most journalists, with deep resentment, predicted that Southampton would concede a goal and Manchester City would most likely lose away. Of course, there are also supporters of Sue Long, saying that Sue Long can already start the game, proving that the injury is no problem. Southampton, then, will not be Manchester City's rivals. October 2nd, 1930, 12:30 UK local time. In the opening match of the 8th round of the Premier League, Manchester City played Southampton away from home, ready to start at St Mary's Stadium. Players from both sides have come out of the players' tunnel. Here is Sky Sports. I'm football host Valentina. Sitting next to me is Premier League professional commentator Richard. Hello Richard. Hello, Valentina, friends of the audience, good afternoon. We have 15 minutes to start watching the game, and this is Southampton's home game against Manchester City. The last game, Manchester City beat Manchester United 2-0 at home, and Southampton lost 1-0 away to Fulham. Richard, what do you think of today's game? From the perspective of the hard power of the squad, it is definitely Manchester City who are better, but now it is the home of Southampton, and Southampton has not won 5 consecutive Premier League games. I think today's game, maybe Southampton bottomed out. Valentina said in her magnetic seductive voice, Then can you tell us about Solon's entry into the Manchester City starting list today? What is the impact on this game, BDFF? Well, I didn't mention Su Long just now because I really can't confirm whether Su Long has recovered from his injuries and if he can continue his miraculous performance as before. No, I think it takes a lot of luck to perform like that before. Su Long recovered, even if it was only half of the previous performance. I think it is already very good. I think if Su Long is doing well today, he is likely to draw with Southampton on the road and are ready to rebound. If Su Long doesn't play well, it is likely to give up a goal. After all, this is the home of Southampton and the home advantage must be respected. Okay, thank you Richard, the game is about to start. Southampton serve. As the game began, countless Manchester City fans sat in front of the TV to cheer for City. Thousands of fans in Dragon Country are also cheering for Manchester City in front of the TV. Now Manchester City is the first home team in the Dragon Premier League. A little more fans are watching the game today than in the past. Because Su Long returned from injury, he started again because of Sun Ji-hai. After the opening, Southampton had the advantage of possession. Because of the away game, Manchester City is testing the other side, so the defensive line is more recycled. In the first half, neither team had a chance to score. Sun Ji-hai was the most active player on the pitch, repeatedly undermining Southampton's attack. Su Long has been trying to create opportunities, but has not been successful. With the help of memory fragments of no life experience, Su Long did not have the advantage of an uncertain prophet, and the offensive threat dropped by a large margin. But Su Long had to adapt to such an occasion. It is impossible to use a life simulation once in every game. This match against Southampton, a weak player in the Premier League, is a good opportunity for Su Long to really rely entirely on his own ability and get used to the Premier League. In the first half, Su Long failed to grasp several offensive opportunities and wasted them. As I expected before the game, Su Long's attack did not have the same aura as before, and such a godlike play would have been difficult to sustain. But the firepower on the side of Southampton is also seriously insufficient, unable to break through the defense of the Dragon Country Sun Ji-hai, and the best performance in the whole field today is the Dragon Country Sunday. This game, if I don't think it is a surprise, will be 0-0. Under the analysis of Sky Sports expert Richard, the second half of the game began quickly. In the 57th minute, Bosveld on Manchester City's side successfully shoveled in midfield. McKinn got the ball to Sun Ji-hai on the left side. Sun Ji-hai knocked back on the middle of the road, Su Long directly into the box. Sun Ji-hai and Su Long's beautiful cooperation. Su Long adjusted a step after receiving the ball, and shot with his right foot. Oh, slightly out of line, Su Long didn't wear shooting boots today. Manchester City's corner. Dunn fired a corner kick from the right and the ball landed in the penalty area. Su Long hit the goal with a powerful header and Nemi successfully sealed the ball out of the bottom line. Wright opened the corner again, and it was Su Long's header. Hey, it was pushed out of the bottom line by the opposing defender. City then opened another corner kick but failed to pose a threat and was almost defended by Southampton. After that, neither team had any chances to score. In the 86th minute, Sun Ji-hai took the ball in the middle of the road, faced the opponent's blocking, and wanted to distribute the ball to Wright Phillips on the right, but perhaps at this time, the physical strength was insufficient, and there was a mistake in the ball, and the speed was too slow and was cut off by the opponent. The opponent faced Sun Ji-hai's rebound, turned to protect the ball, and passed it back to his rear. At this moment, Su Long gritted his teeth and slammed his feet together, breaking the ball at once. The ball changed twice in a second. No one expected this to be the result. Good ball, Su Long broke the ball, he can often do such a thing. In 86 minutes, he made a mistake in the back line of Southampton. He passed to Wright Phillips, who broke through on the right. Wright got to the bottom line, crossed. McCann's header ferry. Oh my god, this scene is familiar. Su Long grabbed the second landing point of the ball. The beauty of Sky Sports explained that Valentina was excited. Su Long left foot push, it's in. My god, in 86 minutes, Su Long is still calm. He hit the far corner and entered. The fans suddenly fell silent. This was followed by a huge boo. Many fans got up and left. What a stinky dog to kick in Southampton. Played for 86 minutes and was scored by the opponent in the last minute? Don't look at it. Su Long shouted and ran to Wright and jumped on Wright's body. Other teammates rushed up. Sun Ji-hai breathlessly said, Su Long, you can, it's almost 90 minutes, and it's still so powerful. Su Long was full of smiles, he had been lurking for almost 90 minutes, and finally scored a goal. In the end, it was Southampton that gave the opportunity. Richard, who had just seemed frightened by Valentina's sudden outburst, was quiet for a moment and spoke suddenly, In the last 5 minutes, Southampton was careless, and Su, the patient hunter, found an opportunity. I apologize for my previous judgment. Su is still excellent. He is like a good hunter. He has been hiding his killing intentions. Until you show flaws, he will give you a fatal blow, Valentina said excitedly. Cool. Su's goal was so cool, and Richard's assessment of you was so cool. Richard looked at the beautiful Valentina and thought to himself, is this a die-hard fan of Su? Conceding a goal in the last 5 minutes of the home game, Southampton certainly couldn't accept it. But with the addition of stoppage time, there was only less than 5 minutes, and it was too late for Nanan to think about the attack. Finally, the referee blew the game-closing whistle and City took 3 points away at 1-0. Congratulations to Manchester City on their success on the road. Su Long scored a crucial goal and deserved to be the best player of the game. The Southampton fans on the scene were so angry that they left the field before the game was over. And the Manchester City fans in front of the TV are so happy that they want to open beer and eat chips and fish to celebrate. Su Long came out of the locker room and walked through the mixed interview area, still answering a question from a reporter from Longwa and then answering a question from other reporters. The beautiful reporter from ESPN asked, Su Long, will you play in the Europa League match the day after tomorrow? Su Long nodded and said, of course. In the last game against the Celtics, they are behind 0-2, and if they can't lead by 3 goals in the home game the day after tomorrow, they will be out in the Europa League. Neither Su Long nor Manchester City want to be out at this time. So in the Europa League game the day after tomorrow, all the main players must play. Do you have faith then? Su Long smiled and said, our home court will definitely beat the Celtics, there is no doubt about it. After saying that, Su Long turned and left. Episode 95, Chelsea's toughness, Warcraft Drogba. In the 3rd minute, Su Long opened the record. Fowler's shot missed, but Celtics goalkeeper Roberts broke away and Sheeran scored. It's wonderful, Su Long's sense of smell in front of the door is too sensitive, and such an opportunity has been seized by him. Now only 1 goal behind, Manchester City have a good chance. In the 29th minute, Su Long turned around in the penalty area and was brought down by air, and the referee awarded a penalty. Su Long presidency. It's in. Oh yes. It was Su Long's 5th goal at the European Cup. The most important thing is that it is only 29 minutes now. There are still 60 minutes left, and anything can happen. In the 76th minute, Su Long received a header from Fowler in the penalty area and sent a calm push and shot the ball in. Oh my god, this is the first time Fowler and Su Long have cooperated. Fowler's header fairy, Su Long's push, the cooperation between the two is seamless. The score is 3-2 on aggregate and Manchester City are ahead. Su Long hat-trick. The whole Manchester City stadium has become a sea of blue. In the 88th minute, Su Long's pass in the box, Fowler shot and scored. The last goal Fowler assisted Su Long, this goal was Su Long assisted Fowler. Just now Fowler obviously did not expect Su Long to pass the ball, so he slowed down, but still scored. 4-2 on aggregate, has stabilized, Manchester City has put up the bus team. In stoppage time, Celtics forward Ford scored a goal, but it was too late. At the end of the match, Manchester City won 4-3 on aggregate and successfully advanced to the group stage of the next plus rounds. Congratulations to Manchester City, congratulations to Su Long. The CCTV5 game camera returned to the broadcast room, and the 2 commentators began to review the game. Dragon fans turned off the TV contentedly. In this game, Su Long was no surprise, and helped Manchester City win this game with a pressure force. After advancing to the next round of the Europa League, we can continue to watch Su Long's performance in Europe. Dragon Country fans are very happy. In order to safely reach the group stage of the Europa League, Su Long used another football simulation, and only 6,000 plus achievement points remained. In addition to the Celtics game, the game that Su Long paid attention to was naturally the qualifier of the World Cup. The brutal result shown in several consecutive football simulations was that Dragon Kingdom failed to advance to the final round of the 2006 World Cup. They lost 7-0 against Hong Kong in Dragon Country. It's not enough goals. Su Long recalled that Alihan did not summon himself again in the World Cup qualifiers in September and October, and presumably guessed what was going on. To put it simply, the last time in the Asian Cup, Su Long yelled at Alihan in the last game, and although Alihan didn't say anything at the time, he was definitely upset. So in the subsequent qualifiers in September and October, there was no summoning of Xiaomi Haiyan himself. Alihan's reason at that time was that the difficulty of the game was not high, and the use of the game to train newcomers did not need to use Su Long and Sun Jihai. Su Long originally thought that he was going to play in the Premier League, and at that time he had to face such a strong opponent as Liverpool and Manchester United, and this arrangement was very good. But if the World Cup screws up, then of course it's not good. The Asian Cup can give Su Long nearly 10,000 achievement points, so how many World Cup can there be? And to be able to lead the Dragon Country team to the World Cup is a glorious thing for Su Long. In September's match against Malays, Dragon Country won 1-0, so it must be the match against Kuwait in October. Dragon Country team lost. Su Long glanced at the Dragon Nation match against Kuwait, which was October 13th, with 9 days to go. Su Long thought about it and decided to draw a salary. Dragon Kingdom against Kuwait. If it is really lost, Su Long will be forced to the palace. It's not enough to play Hong Kong, and Hong Kong FC scored 7 goals, he didn't have 17 goals. It's better to get Alihan down as well, don't always wear it out. On October 5th, the UEFA Cup group stage draw ceremony began at UEFA headquarters in Nyon, Switzerland. In the Manchester City manager's office, the Base Network watched the draw ceremony on TV with several coaches. This is the first time in the history of the UEFA Cup that a group stage format has been adopted. The 40 teams that advanced from round 1 were divided into 5 tiers: Lazio, Parma, Newcastle, Stuttgart, Feyenoord, Rangers, Bruges, Athens AEK are the seeded teams. This draw includes 3 former European champions, Benfica, Feyenoord, Bucharest Star, and 2 former UEFA Cup winners, Schalke 04, Parma. The specific results of the draw are as follows: Group F, Glasgow Wanderers, Auxerre, Austrian Grazek AK Poland, Francisai Amika, Manchester City. The moment the lottery results came out, the Base Net and several coaches jumped up. Great! The opponents in the group stage are not very strong and we can reach the next round. Originally, Manchester City's bench depth is not enough, the gap between the strength of the substitutes and the main players is a bit large. If the Europa League group stage is a death group, perhaps Manchester City will have to consider whether to give up the Europa League. But now it seems okay. The opponents in the group stage are not too strong, and Manchester City can still play on 2 fronts. The next round of the Premier League is on October 16th, when Manchester City host Chelsea, the focus of this round of the Premier League. Because of the 8 rounds of the Premier League, the top 3 are now Arsenal, Chelsea, and Manchester City, all of which are unbeaten records. Arsenal are 7 wins, 1 draw and 22 points in all, Chelsea 6 wins, 2 draws and 20 points in second place. Manchester City finished third with 5 wins, 3 draws and 18 points. In this game, whether Manchester City won at home and climbed to second place in the table, or Chelsea won another sentence away from home and won 3 consecutive wins, which has become a topic of conversation among fans. The Manchester United fans next door now want Manchester City to lose this game and Chelsea to lose this game. Because Manchester United has not been very smooth this season, the so-called 80 million British Rust forward combination has only scored 6 goals in 8 Premier League games, which does not add up to more than Su Long. If Manchester City continues to win like this, Manchester United will have no face when compared. How to say that Manchester United is also a giant, the fans also want face. But if Chelsea continue to win like this, Manchester United will want to catch up in the games that follow, and the difficulty will be higher. In the remarks of various experts, the real enemy of Manchester United is Chelsea, not Manchester City. Because Manchester City's bench depth is not enough, it seems to be strong now, but by the middle and late stages of the league, it will definitely fall behind because the bench depth is not enough. But Chelsea is different. Chelsea, with the support of local boss Abu, recruited Champions League Bishop Mourinho, and also spent nearly 100 million British slander to buy and multi-star bench depth in the Premier League. The last Premier League champions Arsenal are also strong. If this continues, there is a good chance that United will not be able to finish in the top 2 as they did last season. Not being in the top 2 for 2 consecutive seasons, and not being able to play directly in the Champions League group stage is a shame for Manchester United. This round of competition, the warm-up began very early. Various newspapers and periodicals have begun to warm up the momentum for this focus battle. Su Long originally thought that the editor of the newspaper media was going to say that Manchester City could not do it here, where it did not work, but he did not expect this game, and most of the newspapers and media were on the side of Manchester City. Many British coaches have mocked Mourinho for only swinging the bus in goal, 1-0 opportunists, saying that Mourinho's game is dull and completely desecrating football. Su Long took a slight look, probably guessing that Mourinho was a high-profile and arrogant and unruly person who had offended the British local coach. Now Manchester City is Chelsea's opponent, the so-called enemy of the enemy, is the friend, so before this round of matches, Manchester City became the team that everyone expected. Most commentators in England feel that Chelsea will not be able to win at home to Manchester City. Even the players and coaches on the Manchester City side are very confident. Su Long frowned, he always felt wrong. If I remember correctly, Mourinho's Chelsea were the strongest teams in the Premier League at the time. Although it is Manchester City's home, Su Long does not think Mourinho will be so easy to deal with. Before the game, the head coach encouraged the players, "This is our home stadium, we Manchester City have never pulled the crotch at home this season, we are the same in this game, win this game, let everyone know how good we are Manchester City." All of them gathered in circles, stretched out their hands, and came together. Victory! Su Long came out of the players' tunnel and felt that now Manchester City seemed to be trapped in blind confidence. Chelsea is not that simple. Of course, Su Long also wants to win this game. Su Long thought about it for a while and decided to conduct a career simulation. My experience in Real Madrid, and the national football team flashed by, and finally came to the game in front of me. Manchester City lost 2-1 at home to Chelsea. Sure enough, Chelsea is strong. Drogba scored 1 goal and 1 assist to become the best of the game. A world-class striker known as Warcraft. Regardless of the impact, speed, physique is very good. Skillfully complete the shot from any angle, from any position, and can also complete the shot when it is about to fall. Not only can the offense panic the defender, but the defense is equally terrifying, often completing the steal of the defender. Attack and defense are integrated, which is very scary. In this game, Drogba played a very scary role, single-handedly, to blow up Manchester City's midfield. I don't know if it was Drogba who was too strong or if Manchester City's midfield was too weak. It's still a little difficult to change my life against the sky, but I also scored, there must be a way to crack it. Episode 96, Chelsea's Death Hole. In this game in his life experience, Manchester City was here to make a penalty, take a penalty, and score a goal. In the memory clip, Chelsea's pressure on Manchester City's side in midfield was too high, resulting in many mistakes in this game and being broken several times. And Drogba seized 2 of those opportunities. As for the penalty shot made by Su Long, it was a long pass by right, and Su Long was credited with the success of the anti-offside position. Ferreira, who stayed behind, was already desperately trying to catch up, but in the confrontation, he was inferior to Su Long, and could only squeeze Su Long behind, and as a result, Su Long was squeezed down in the penalty area. The referee awarded a penalty, which was the only time City scored this game. It was the penalty that Ferreira created here. Ferreira's slightly slower turn was the key to the penalty. Number 20 Ferreira, the slow turn, is the death hole I want to target in this game. In the memory clip, I only made this penalty at the end of the first half. In fact, I can cause trouble for the opposite side as soon as I start. Su Long immediately went to right and consulted with him, and when he had the opportunity, he would pass the weak side for a long time. Right nodded. Both of them had been working together for more than 2 months and were already very familiar with a whistle, and the game began. The fans cheered. A sea of light blue. River. Unbeaten in 8 consecutive rounds, Manchester City fans have never felt so tough as they are now. They want to use their enthusiasm to help the home team win. The female fans were the most is Su Long's number 9 jersey, which is very big. The game began and Chelsea were in control of the situation on the pitch. Since it is not like the style of traditional British teams, playing very cautiously and holistically, so it looks very dull, which is the style of Chelsea play. In the 11th minute, after several failed attacks by Chelsea, Su Long finally found a perfect opportunity. Chelsea's Frank Lampard's free kick was destroyed, and City immediately counter-attacked, with Boswell passing long past the edge of the box. Su Long was already fighting with Ferreira, waiting for his teammate's pass, constantly testing the edge of offside and anti-offside. Although he did not wait for Wright's long biography, he waited for Bosvelt's long biography. At the moment of Bosvelter's footing, Su Long ran a step in front of him, and then immediately sprinted in the opposite direction, tricking Ferreira. The fans cheered. Su. Goals. Just as Su Long burst into the penalty area with great speed, Paul Ferreira behind him struck. Su Long fell to the ground in response. My God, Su Long fell down in the forbidden area. This action is too controversial, it depends on how the referee decides the penalty. In my opinion, this is the right penalty, and we can clearly see the movement of Ferreira's hand. There was an uproar, followed by even greater cheers. Players on both sides immediately rushed over. Ferreira and Chelsea's players explained to referee Webb, while Manchester City's captain Dunn, as well as Mills and others, were putting pressure on referee Webb. Referee Webb did not hesitate, directly awarded a penalty, and showed a yellow card to the arguing Ferreira. Ferreira covered her head and walked away, depressed. Su Long came to take the penalty. He easily tricked Petr Cech and shot with his right foot to the left side of the goal. It's in. Manchester City lead 1-0. It's Su Long again. Su Long is now the savior of Manchester City. Who would have thought that a risky transfer 3 months ago would have achieved such a good result? I remember that before the start of the game, there were a lot of Manchester City fans who opposed this transfer and wanted to save Anelka, and now I can only say, it is really fragrant. Anelka, who was recuperating at home injured, slammed the TV set. Mourinho, the madman on the sidelines, was shouting for his disciple Carvalho to come over and tell him to go and make up for Ferreira at any time. I didn't expect Manchester City to prepare so well for this game, and found this loophole in Ferreira's slow turn. And it's really targeted. Mourinho looked at the excited Keegan on the other side of the bench, and sure enough, every manager in the Premier League can't underestimate it. 5 minutes later, it's still Ferreira's point, this time it's Wright's long pass, or the same position, or the same recipe. Su Long immediately succeeded in countering offside. But this time, centre-back Carvalho destroyed Sheeran's offensive beat with a sliding shovel from Carvalho. Su Long sat on the ground, slightly injured, and pulled Sun Jihai up. "Su Long, is it all right?" Su Long shook his head and said, "It's all right, fortunately, it has the characteristics of an Iron Man. Only minor injuries, but still fighting." A free kick on Manchester City's side. Bosvold served the ball and was easily confiscated by Petr Cech in front of goal. At this time, although Cech is young, he is already the world's top goalkeeper. Su Long shook his head, the opportunity was there, but he didn't grasp it. That's when Chelsea made a substitution. Mourinho's substitution in less than 30 minutes. Ferreira was replaced. Su Long's eyes widened in surprise, didn't expect Mourinho's response to be so fast. Is this the championship coach? It was the first time Su Long had encountered such a quick response. All of a sudden, he consumed 1,000 achievement points to find out the weak points and make up for them. On the sidelines, Mourinho kept giving Gremmy something to get ready to play. Su Long felt that the idea of using the slow turn to counter the offside breakthrough was impossible. Since Mourinho doesn't give me too many chances to score, then I don't have to be tough either. I'm also here to sabotage the opposing attack and put all my energy on defense. In the 29th minute, Su Long ran to the back of the field to clear the ball and then blocked another long-range shot from Lampard with his body. I have to say that this ball is hot on the ass. Fortunately, Su Long was more resourceful and turned around to block it with his butt, otherwise he might be directly injured. Su Long had also read in the newspaper that a player had a broken bone because of blocking the ball, and he felt exaggerated at the time. Now it seems that the long-range fire of the heavy gunners does have such a terrible power. In the 33rd minute, Su Long once again cut off Gudjonson's ball in the backfield, but was blown away. Su Long shook his head. Mourinho on the sidelines watched Su Long run to meet him, showing an appreciative look. It was the younger version of the Asian Drogba, equally willing to retreat from large distances to defend. Even if you score a goal, you still work hard to defend yourself. Really like. In the 42nd minute, due to Su Long's repeated withdrawal of the broken ball, Drogba had to come back to receive it. Su Long saw Drogba receiving the ball, always felt that Drogba was going to score this attack, and immediately rushed up to kick it. Bang! The sound of collisions between muscles sounded. Su Long inhaled a cold breath, really hard. Overlord feature activation, Iron Man feature activated, minor injury, it hurts. Fortunately, there are Iron Man attributes. Su Long turned his head and looked dumbfounded. Drogba fell. How hard is he than the Warcraft Drogba? Referee Webb ran over and gave Su Long a yellow God of War card. Su Long shook his head, trying to show his friendliness, and lifted Drogba up, only to find Drogba covering his left foot in pain. Then, Chelsea's team doctor came. Soon, Drogba was helped off. This was a completely unexpected result for Su Long. He kicked Drogba, who was supposed to score, and injured him? Mourinho rushed up to visit Drogba's injuries, only to see Drogba shake his head in pain before being sent back to the locker room for treatment. Mourinho frowned, in a bad mood, and went to complain to the fourth referee. Shouldn't such a rude move on the other side of number 9 give him a red card? The fourth referee shook his head and said, "Referee Webb has already awarded the penalty, Mr. Coach." Mourinho scolded and went back. He was just venting his anger. Although Chelsea has sprinkled gold and bought a lot of players this season, after playing 9 rounds, the only striker player who can be used is Drogba, and other strikers simply do not meet Mourinho's requirements. But now that Drogba is injured, it looks like he will need at least several rounds of recuperation. Mourinho was worried. After Drogba's departure, Chelsea's attack was even more intense, but the resistance on Manchester City's side was equally unafraid. Just after the second half began, Sun Jihai was injured in an interception and was sent off the field for treatment. After that, Chelsea's many attacks were unsuccessful. And Manchester City's side also did not have a good chance. Su Long was repeatedly trapped in the other side's circle. It can only be said that Chelsea's defense restrained the attacks of Sheeran and Manchester City. Fortunately, Su Long advanced by 1 goal. Manchester City have always been in the initiative. Fans on the sidelines have been singing battle songs to cheer for Manchester City. If this game is won, Manchester City will be unbeaten and ranked second in the table. This is something that was completely unimaginable at the beginning of the season. In the 78th minute, Mourinho made another substitution, replacing Carvalho and Thiago with 2 forwards. ESPN's live commentary exclaimed, "Chelsea desperately bet and replaced 2 forwards, so that the midfield has accumulated 7 players and left only 3 players as the backline, ready to charge in the last minute. If Chelsea's attack is mistaken and it is counterattacked by Manchester City, the consequences are unimaginable. Yes, there are only 3 defenders, the midfield is all moving forward to attack, and there is a lot of space behind it, depending on whether Manchester City can seize the opportunity to counterattack. But Chelsea had to do that. City were 1 goal ahead and Chelsea had to gamble. If you win a bet, you will be able to equalize, or even overtake. It's okay to lose a bet, after all, Chelsea is also behind. Mourinho is such an opportunist, and this arrangement is very much in line with Mourinho's style. But from the game, it seems that today's luck is not on Chelsea's side. Episode 97, $1 billion contract, shocking the world. 81st minute. Makelele's header was deflected, unfortunately, it's just a little bit. 84th minute. Frank Lampard's shot. Oops, England goalkeeper James played so well today that he saved another almost must-score goal. 88th minute. Chelsea continued to step up their attack, all 3 defenders came up, but Mills made a steal and knocked his back to Dunn, who had a long pass. The rear is a lot of emptiness. Su Long, the fans cheered. Oops, Su Long's shot was also deflected. Wright pulled Su Long up, and Su Long clapped and said, "Mine." At the last moment, Su Long's feet softened. Well, up to now, Su Long's physical strength is also insufficient. In the end, Chelsea's change before the end of the game did not bring goals to themselves, but it did not allow Manchester City to further expand their advantage. In a tense atmosphere, the referee blew the whistle at the end of the game. The fans cheered. Although Su Long's last attack did not score, 1-0 is also a victory. And it won Chelsea. Mourinho glanced at Su Long and shook his head. In the post-match press conference, Mourinho said, "From the beginning of the season to the present, we at Chelsea have remained unbeaten until this game. In this game, everyone also has eyes to see. To put it bluntly, we just lost to one person, Manchester City's number 9, Su. His all-around offense and defense has made me so influential that I really can't imagine him as an 18-year-old. When Su Long came out of the locker room and walked through the mixed 13 interview area, the reporters rushed up. Now Su Long is already the traffic password of the Premier League. Manchester City are second in line, and Su Long is now tied with Henry for the top scorer list, and everyone knows this 18-year-old genius from the Dragon Kingdom. Su, Mourinho said in his post-match press conference that Chelsea are losing to you alone, what do you think? Su Long was stunned for a moment, and Mourinho, the madman, said something. Well, I don't quite understand what you're saying. Our Manchester City victory is based on the efforts of all of us. There is no credit to me alone, no passing, no goal, no defense, no attack. After speaking, Su Long waved his hand and left. The next day all the sports press, the media, wrote what Mourinho said in his post-match press conference that Chelsea had been beaten by Sheeran alone. Various commentators, experts, have expressed their views. Most of them praised Su Long's performance in this game, saying that Su Long is the shoulder of the new generation and the superstar of the future. Not only the British newspapers and media, but also the forums, newspapers, and media on the Dragon Kingdom side are already superb. Su Long King descending, 1 goal to defeat Chelsea, Chelsea fiasco, Mourinho said to lose to Su Long, the first person in the new generation of football. Now in the major forums, the number of people discussing football has begun to faintly exceed that of basketball. Su Long became the most famous player in the Dragon Kingdom. However, during the afternoon training, Keegan did not seem to be very satisfied with Su Long, and kept reminding Su Long that he must run according to tactics and not come by himself. Su Long was stunned for a moment, not trying to understand what was his own chaos. It wasn't until he returned home that Su Long slowly understood what was going on. It was Su Long who did not follow Keegan's tactics in Chelsea's game. In Keegan's view, Su Long was deviating from his own tactics. For a controlling head coach, it is naturally uncomfortable. He has to maintain his prestige, control the team so that the players in the team are obedient to him, so that he can better execute his tactics. In this game at Chelsea, Su Long won, but did not run strictly according to Keegan's tactics, violating discipline. This made Keegan feel conflicted. That's why the scene during training appeared. Su Long couldn't help it. Run exactly according to Keegan's tactics, and you will most likely lose the last game. Mourinho's reaction was quick, and after replacing Ferreira, Su Long did not have a better response. Fortunately, Drogba was injured, otherwise he would probably have been chased and even overtaken. Just as Su Long was finishing his training in the afternoon and getting ready to go home, Mendes's call came. "Su, are you free tomorrow?" "Free, what's wrong?" "That's right, I want to talk to you about sneaker sponsorship." Su Long's eyes lit up. "Sneaker sponsorship? You mean?" "The sneaker sponsorship contract, Nike, Adi, and Puma, are already impatient, Su," Mendes said quietly on the other end of the phone. In fact, when Su Long joined Manchester City for £10 million 3 months ago, the three major football shoe brands of Nike, Adi, and Puma already had ideas for Su Long. But Su Long never agreed, and Mendes felt that the sincerity they gave was not enough, so he told these brands that Su Long now needs to focus all his attention on the Premier League and the UEFA Cup. Nike, Adi, and Puma originally only regarded Su Long as an ordinary Nova up. Of course, these international big names could not take the initiative to paste it, so they did not pay much attention. Maybe after a while, Su Long disappeared on the Premier League arena, and they also saved millions of pounds in sponsorship fees. However, Su Long's super performance in the Premier League in the past 3 months, the heat has soared like a rocket, completely beyond their imagination. Whether it is Nike, Adi, or Puma, or the lower line of Umbro, Mizuno, Ashers, NB, Carmi, and even CV, a local brand from Australia, have found Mendes. Mendes would have been relatively idle during the non-transfer period, already on the way to travel with his wife and son, and ended up being smashed in the face of a lot of sponsorship inquiries. To this end, Mendes also apologized to his wife and son, and then went on a trip after he was busy with this matter. When the Su Dragon people heard Mendes say that he was very hot now, he immediately laughed. "They can't wait. Yeah, I'm on my way to the Paris airport, and hey, your business is affecting my vacation, Su." Su Long smiled and said, "Mendes, then you can continue your vacation. I think after this season, they will be more anxious." Mendes's laughter rang across the phone. "Su, are you so sure? I'll go over and talk to you." "Okay." After Su Long hung up the phone, he smiled. At 10 a.m. the next morning, Su Long met Mendes in a cafe. Mendes looked at Su Long and said, "Su, first of all, tell me about the brand you are ideal to sign upon." Su Long smiled and said, "Oh, there is nothing most ideal. Which one has the highest sincerity? I will choose which." Mendes looked at Sauron and said, "Oh, I remember you've been wearing Assassin Illusion 2R9, right?" "Oh, yes, because this is the most comfortable." Mendes nodded and said, "Well, if you can wear your most comfortable sneakers to play, then the best. I'll tell you about Nike's mortal enemy, Adidas's sincerity." Su Long smiled. Mendes liked to play with such suspense. Su Long quietly watched Mendes write a number on a blank piece of paper. $12 million, 6 years. Su Long immediately took out a calculator and counted it. At this time, the exchange rate is $1 equals 8.3 Dragon coins. Over 100 million Dragon coins. Su Long felt Oklahoma. Regarding the sponsorship fee of football shoes, Su Long also understands it, and it is not as high as basketball shoes. A 7-year, $50 million sneaker contract like Dayo is not available in football. Because ordinary people will buy basketball shoes to wear, but if they don't play games, they won't buy football shoes. The highest sponsorship fee for football shoes now came in 2003, when David Beckham, who was still playing for Manchester United, signed a $160 million lifetime contract with Adidas. This price tag is not as good as the Little Emperor who has just entered the NBA. So, Adidas gave $12 million for 6 years. Mendes said, $12 million 6 years is a guarantee, in addition to the league, the European Championship, the national team honorary award. Adidas wants you to stay where you are for a long time. If in 6 years, the league scores more than 50 goals, the reward is $2 million, the European Cup scores more than 15 goals, the reward is $1.5 million, the national team scores more than 20 goals, the reward is $1 million, and then there are other rewards, up to 140 there are $20 million. After listening to Mendes, Su Long asked again, "Don't you mean that there are other brands?" Mendes went on to say, "Puma, Umbro, Mizuno, Arthurs, NB, Com, and CV, a local brand from Australia, can't afford the sincerity, but they all say that they can set up a series for you individually and give dividends for this series." Su Long shook his head and said, "What is the use of dividends? Football boots are originally niche, are you missing one?" Mendes smiled and said, "The last to appear is often the protagonist, and the sincerity given by Nike is the most sufficient in my opinion." "Huh? Mendez wrote 40 million on another blank piece of paper. Su Long's eyes widened, very surprised. Even if it was not guaranteed 40 million, it was more than 1 times more than Adidas. $40 million? Mendez was satisfied with Su Long's surprise, looked at Su Long and smiled and said, "That's right, it's 40 million. Of course, the overall non-guarantee is 40 million, the guarantee is 17 million, and the signature is 8 years. After Nike lost Dayo in 2003, it has always wanted to find a spokesperson for the Dragon Kingdom, so Nike is willing to pay such a big price." Mendez then said the 40 million non-guaranteed portion. Scoring more than 100 goals in the top 10 leagues is awarded 5 million. Scored more than 25 goals in the European Championship and awarded 5 million. The national team scored more than 40 goals and was awarded 5 million. Then there's the Asian Footballer of the Year and the like, with rewards of 8 million. That adds up to exactly 40 million. Su Long sighed and said, "Mendez, discuss with Nike, the 8-year contract period is too long. Do you think you can sign a few years at the minimum?" Mendez thought for a moment and said, "Signing with Nike, the minimum is more than 5 years. Then 50 million in 5 years, ask Nike if it is okay there." Mendez's eyes widened. "Su, how could it be?" Su Long smiled and said, "After you listen to me, I can achieve the above conditions within 5 years. How about you ask Nike?" Episode 98. The global sensation, the golden voice has come. "Su, you're crazy, but you have to think clearly. If you can't finish it, then there's nothing." "Trust me, I can." Mendez didn't know where Su Long's confidence came from, but called Nike anyway. After a while, Mendez hung up the phone, still a little incredulous. Su Long's courage is so big, he dares to gamble with Nike like this. Nike's guts are also so big. "Su, what Nike means over there is that since you are so confident, they also want to make a big news, and he plans to give you the highest 10 years of 100 million. Of course, the conditions given by Nike are also much harsher than before. The first is to win more than 2 Asian Footballers of the Year and 1 Ballon d'Or in 10 years. Then there were 300 goals scored in 10 years, including league, cup and official national team matches. Otherwise, you can only get less than 1/10 of the $10 million in 10 years. In Mendez's view, Su Long could not have fulfilled such conditions. If such conditions can be fulfilled, Su Long is a world-class star. Su Long smiled and said, "This can't work. I have the 1.4 billion people of the Dragon Kingdom behind me, and 10 years is too long, just 5 years." In the end, under Su Long's bargain, coupled with Mendez's 3-inch tongue, it was really agreed. When the agreement was probably drawn up, Mendez did not dare to imagine. 5 years 58 million agreement. In 5 years, Su Long has been nominated for the Asian Footballer of the Year more than once and once for the Ballon d'Or. Scored 160 goals in 5 years, including league, cup and national team official matches. If you win a Golden Globe once, it doesn't matter if the above conditions are not met, otherwise you can only get less than 1/10 of the $5 million in 10 years. A $58 million contract was agreed. Once this news is released, it will definitely shock the world. Of course, in Mendez's view, Su Long was too risky. To this end, Mendez persuaded several times. But seeing that Su Long was full of confidence, Mendez could only say that when the time came, "You don't say that I didn't persuade you." For Mendez, he can get a large signing fee from Nike anyway. Su Long was also persuaded, and Su Long insisted on going his own way, so he couldn't do anything. However, this effect will be very good. 18-year-old Dragon Country talent player, 58 million sky-high sneaker contract. You should know that Si Luo is only a 10 million 5-year contract. Mendez felt that his reputation as a top agent was definitely about to start. So Mendez was happy too. "Su, you can think about it, the guaranteed part of this contract is far less than the original version given by Nike. One is 5 million, the other is 17 million. Su Long nodded, believing he could take the 58 million. As for 5 years from now, that's not the price it is now. Even Su Long thought about making his own brand. Su Long smiled and said, "Mendez, you have to have confidence in me, maybe I can win the Golden Globe." Mendez smiled, although Su Long was now the hottest fried chicken, but Mendez still couldn't believe it. How could the Golden Globes be? "So when are you going to sign the contract?" "Anytime, at any time." Since Su Long's side has to train and compete, the signing of the contract can only be Nike's side. It's just that Su Long hasn't waited for Nike's people, but he has waited for a bad news. The Dragon national team lost 1-0 to Kuwait's Su Long and Sun Jihai in the World Cup Asian qualifiers before the event and were excluded from the squad. And Jingji has been pressed on the bench and cannot play. This was something Su Long hadn't expected. Jingji also called Su Long to complain. Just because Jingji did not agree to let Ali Han represent him in the transfer of his stay in the West, Ali Han found a reason not to let Jingji play. The few new players who came on the field were all young players who played as Arabists in the field. The match ended up losing 1-0. Su Long was furious. A foreign coach who only cared about his own locker room authority and interests, regardless of national interests, absolutely could not stay in the national team anymore. He wanted to force the palace. Ali Han was not only provoking him, Sun Jihai, Jingji, and surely others. He couldn't believe that so many people couldn't bring down an Ali Han. Su Long immediately called Su Gao and discussed his thoughts with him. Su Gao said on the other side of the phone, "Well, in fact, the top level of the Football Association also came to me today to explore your tone and ask you what you think. After all, you are now the biggest player in our Dragon Country football. My idea is very simple. Ali Han can't stay, change a coach, domestic can also do." Su Gao said in a deep voice, "Now this time to change the coach, the time is a little urgent, it is impossible to hire outside, can only be found inside the Football Association. Do you think the Thai coach who brought the Toulon Cup before can be?" Su Long heard Su Gao say this and smiled. "It is the FA side that also wants to change people, right?" "Well, yes, the FA has such an idea, but no matter what, you have to ask your tone of voice first. Mainly, they don't know which side you are on. Coaching Thai is very good, his tactics are very suitable for me." "Well, I see, then your next game, against Hong Kong, do you have time?" Su Long said firmly, "When I have time, I will definitely participate. The matter on the national football side is temporarily over, and it depends on how the top level of the Football Association handles it." Su Long couldn't control it either, and could only wait patiently. At this time, Nike's business group came. Su Long and Mendez found their own lawyers, and after a morning of consultation, Su Long happily signed a sneaker sponsorship contract. On October 23, the day before the 10th round of the Premier League, Nike announced that it had reached a sneaker sponsorship agreement with Su Long. Related reports, as well as Su Long and Nike's global vice president, Greater Europe President Elliot Hill at the signing ceremony, appeared in a large section of major sports media and sports newspapers around the world. This point of public relations fees, Nike still has. Chloe took the newspaper, threw it on the bed, looked at Su Long with a flushed face, and said, "Su, you are in the newspaper, $58 million. Su Long saw Chloe's excitement, smiled and said, "Well, you already knew." Chloe, as a pillow person, is naturally the first to know. Even though Chloe already knew, she was thrilled when she saw it in the newspaper. His own man, who signed a $58 million contract with Nike, is too powerful. Chloe looked at Su Long's eyes full of stars, very admiring. Su Long couldn't help but hold Chloe in his arms. The content behind it could not be described, please imagine it yourself. In the editorial department of Sports Weekly, Li Jia wore a black OL skirt and sat on a computer chair, looking from the side, perfectly showing a full body. At her table, there was never a shortage of flowers and breakfast, which had been sent by someone else. Li Jia looked at the newspaper in his hand, which read, "Nike and Su Long signed a contract for sky-high sneakers, and their status is comparable to that of the Little Emperor." She pursed her red lips, her eyes sparkling, and then stood up and walked to the editor-in-chief's office. "I'm going to apply to be a resident correspondent in Manchuria." In the classroom, Li Qian pulled Ji Wenjun and said, "Wow, Su Long is so handsome." Ji Wenjun said with a puzzled face, "What's wrong?" Li Qian took out her mobile phone and showed it to Ji Wenjun. "You see, Nike signed a $58 million sneaker contract with him, and it turns out that the star is so rich." Ji Wenjun was stunned for a moment, looking at the report on Li Qian's mobile phone, but his heart felt bad. She felt that she and Su Long were getting farther and farther apart. On the Tianya forum of Longhua, Sina Sports, Tiaba above, and various sports forums, they are discussing the Su Long $58 million sneaker contract. All kinds of analyses are appearing online. Some people compared and analyzed Dayo, and some people compared and analyzed Su Long and the Little Emperor, and came to the conclusion that Su Long's contract amount was not lower than that of Dayo and the Little Emperor. If you talk about the difference between the football shoe contract and the basketball shoe contract, Su Long's contract is much stronger than that of Dayao and Xiao Emperor. Some people took out the sneaker contract between Su Long and other stars in the Premier League for analysis, saying that Su Long's 10-year, $5,800 contract is a super huge premium, which can be said to be unprecedented in the sponsorship of football shoes. Don't look at Beckham is $160 million, but Beckham has already achieved success and gone to Real Madrid. And Su Long has just made his debut. The 18-year-old genius who got the sponsorship contract is taller than the whole Manchester City team. This can only be said that Nike has taken a fancy to the dragon market behind Su Long. The people who follow the post below, some of the acid Su Long's strength is not good enough to rely on the Dragon Country market, and immediately someone refuted it. Premier League top scorer list, the strength is not good, you play? Yeah, are people all scared? 18-year-old compared last year's Premier League Golden Boot Henry, is it okay? No matter how you rely on the Dragon Country market, you also have to have strength, and you don't see other players with such huge contracts? Yeah, didn't Manchester United sign a £3.5 million Don Wanjua before? Don't see him sign a sneaker contract? Xiao Dong was also shot while lying in Belgium, and the notebook in front of him was directly smashed. Dong Fangzhou angrily said to himself, I also want to play in the Premier League, score. I'm going to get the top scorer in the first place, then get the labor certificate, and go into the Premier League. At this moment, Dong Fangzhou's heart burned with fire. Just after a fierce battle, Su Long picked up the mobile phone. Just came a few calls. Su Long did not answer. Only now did I see Su Gao's message, and my eyes widened. Golden Throat is looking for me to advertise? Su Long's mind immediately came up with the picture of Ronaldo in the Golden Throat advertisement, holding the golden throat and smirking. It's magical. At that time, just after the 2002 World Cup, Su Long was very impressed. Chloe hugged Su Long and said softly, honey, what's wrong? Su Long murmured, it seems that there is a new advertising cooperation. Episode 99, Massive Endorsements, the Dragon Kingdom's most popular. Su Long immediately called Su Gao and asked what was going on. Golden Voice, a generation of classics. De Luo's fangs are unforgettable. In 2004, it should be seen on TV stations around the Dragon Kingdom. This is the same classic as Hafiza's IMC Ronaldo's anti-dandruff faction. Su Long did not intend to mix a foot into it, but it did not affect Su Long's gossip. Su Gao received a call from Su Long, and after 2 words of greeting, he sighed, Su Long, you are now a fragrant feast in the advertising industry, not only a golden voice, but also Media's air conditioners, Hisense TV, and Gome electrical appliances. These companies hope to find your endorsement. Jiang Peijian, the boss of the Golden Voice, wants to come to Manchuria to meet you in person, and she said that she will definitely be able to impress you. Su Long remembered the feud between De Luo and Jin Xingzi, and at that time heard that it was this Jiang Zong who drunk De Luo and deceived De Luo with 300,000 dragon coins, saying that he was a personal fan who wanted to record a memorial and would never be used for commercial purposes. As a result, it was on TV the next day. I don't know if this is true or not, but it can be seen that this Jiang Zong is very fierce. Su Long felt that it was better to forget it, in case he accidentally hit her Tao, turned into De Luo and him on TV, wouldn't it become an eternal classic? Su Gao heard Su Long's refusal and smiled and said, Su Long, it seems that you also know about Jean Throat. Have you heard a little bit? Is De Luo really deceived? Oh, I heard that yes, that Jiang always has something. So, don't let her come, let me reject her, I'm young, I can't figure out this Jiang Zong. Well, okay, the Golden Throat over there I refused you, I tell you, the United States air conditioning, Hisense TV, and Gome electrical appliances, they all have the idea of looking for your endorsement. Do you have any opinions on these brands? Is it unacceptable not 360? Nothing. That's fine, I'll talk to Mendez over there, and then we'll talk about it first, make sure the other party has a real intention of cooperating, and then talk to you further. No problem, trouble brother Su. What's the trouble? That's what I should do. Now we're all on your back, haha, don't say that, it wasn't brother Su who brought me out in the first place, and I didn't have me today. Su Long was grateful, and if it were not for Su Ji's help, the agreement between himself at the Jinmen football school in the first place could not be cancelled. Not to mention the later stay in the ocean. At Su Long's house, Su Dad took a pile of newspapers and smiled and sealed the page on each newspaper about Su Long and Nike's signing of the contract, and later served as Ming Lang. Every time the page about Su Long appeared in the newspaper before, it was sealed and put up by Su Dad in this way. Su Dad and Su Ma would occasionally take it out to sea. Mama Su suddenly asked, $58 million, which is equal to how many dragon coins? Su's father looked at Su's mother and said, won't you count for yourself? Multiply by 8, about 400 million more than 500 million dragon coins. Didn't my son say it yesterday? In fact, only $5 million is guaranteed, that's a lot of money. By the way, my son's $1 million remittance has arrived. Mama Su was immediately anxious, you bad old man, how can you ask for your son's money? Su Dad suddenly rolled his eyes, you are just the old man, this is the son called, can I still refuse to accept it? Besides, the son has made money, give us a use, this is not filial piety. Mama Su thought about it and was right. Before that, Su Long was only 18 years old, and Su Mom subconsciously felt that her son was still young and needed her own care and help. But now it seems that the son has grown up. Achievements far exceed yourself. Now it's time for the son to start taking care of his parents. Thinking of this, Su Ma's eye sockets were a little red. The relationship between parents and sons is also changing too fast. Su Dad looked at Suma and smiled. His wife is rich in feelings, always likes to cry. Women, just like this, get used to it. By the way, my son said let's retire and travel, he took it all. Mama Su immediately shook her head and said, travel is okay, but even if we retire, we are only 40 years old, what can we do when we retire so early? Don't spend my son's money randomly. Su Dad smiled and said, well, I think the same way, wait a while, let's go to Manchuria again on New Year's Day. Mama Su nodded. At the Manchester City training base, several teammates with good relations surrounded Su Long, full of envy and jealousy. Su, you're bulliper, $58 million. You saved the whole world in your last life. Hey, people can't compare with each other. Su Long shook his head and said, that's all conditional, in essence, it's only a few $1,000,000. Although Su Long said this, everyone did not believe it. They also knew that Su Long, as a Longwa person, could not have the commercial value behind it. There are also stars in the team who have sneaker sponsorship contracts, such as the current British national team winger Quaimarat, dressed as Adidas, and I heard that there is a sponsorship fee of $2 million in 5 years. In comparison, it is still much lower. Strength, plus the coffee position, is the status in the dressing room. Coupled with the fact that there are no other top stars in the Manchester City team, and there is no gang fight, Su Long's core position is more stable. Looking back now, Su Long feels that the Manchester City locker room environment is really very suitable for newcomers like himself. On October 24th, in the 10th round of the Premier League, Manchester City played Newcastle away from home. Because Sun Jihai's ligaments were broken, he was injured at home and did not follow the past game. Su Long was in average form in this game, not scoring a goal. Wright scored a goal, but was unable to save the bank. Manchester City lost 2-1. A 9-game unbeaten run after the start of the season was ended. The second place in the table was taken away by Chelsea again, and Manchester City dropped to third. After Su Long returned, he learned that Sun Jihai had actually appeared at Old Trafford Stadium with Dong Fangzhou. I heard that Sun Jihai made a few tickets and went to Manchester United to watch the ball with Xiao Dong, who was also injured. Xiao Dong was also injured in the Belgian game. Doesn't it mean that Manchester City and Manchester United are the same city derby? Su Long also couldn't understand such an operation, and Manchester City didn't even care. To this end, Sun Jihai said with a smile, the derby is the derby, usually it is usual, and you Manchester City are away to Newcastle, I can't follow it when I'm injured, just because Xiao Dong is also injured, we both go to see Manchester United play Arsenal. Well, brother Hai, how are your feet now? Sun Jihai said with a smile, according to the previous doctor's diagnosis and estimate, I have broken 2 ligaments, at least to be treated and recuperated for about 8 months, which means that Sun Jihai will not only miss all the leagues this season, but also affect next season. Su Long frowned, is it so serious? Thinking back to many times in my previous football career, didn't I also have a torn ligament? Injuries are really the life and death line of a player. Sun Jihai was nothing, but still smiled and said, on the 20th, through the joint consultation of several doctors, several plans they proposed were relatively new. One of the doctors said that because the injury is in a good location, it is very conducive to recovery and may be cured within 2 to 3 months. So are you going to the beautiful country for surgery? No, basically we've decided to go to a hospital in Wales where Simon Roberts, a fairly famous sports trauma doctor in England, personally operated the operation. Su Long nodded and said, well, brother Jihai, everything is going well. Sun Jihai patted Su Long's shoulder and said, well, on November 17th, our Longwa vs Hong Kong team, I can't go, you must give me 10 or 8 goals, keep Longwa from appearing. Su Long. Even when injured, Sun Jihai was thinking about the Dragon Country team's match on November 17th, which was Dragon Country's first qualifier in the Asian World Cup. The last game of the second round was up. If you can surpass Kuwait on goal difference, then Dragon Country can qualify. Su Long smiled slightly and said, it will be. On November 2nd, in the final game of the 11th round of the Premier League, Manchester City played at home to promoted Manovic. In the 11th minute, Shuren picked up Wright Phillips' pass and fired a powerful shot into the goal. In the 46th minute, Marcy Svensson assisted Francis to equalize, and Norwich was very despicable in swinging the bus. After that, Manchester City failed to score many long-range shots, and finally regrettably flattened. After the game, Keegan was very angry that Mourinho gave the Premier League a very bad atmosphere, and now the teams are pursuing such a negative tactic as the bus, and the Premier League is regressing. Su Long thought in his heart, others can use you too. This old coach's brain is not flexible, we have the heart to defend when we are 1-0, and he is constantly demanding attacks on the sidelines. As a result, it was successfully countered by the defense. Isn't it cool to set up a bus formation when you are leading 1-0, play a defensive counterattack, and wait for the other side to make a mistake? Unfortunately, Keegan's little old man's brain is not very flexible, and he is also very stubborn, and he likes to play with his wings flying together. When you lead, your wings fly together, and when you are behind, you still fly with both wings. The typical British old man has a kind of confidence in the British football tradition. Sue Long just wanted to say, "My lord, the world has changed." After the game was forced to draw, Manchester City still ranked third with 22 points. Arsenal were also forced to draw at home, and Chelsea's points have equalised Arsenal, but the goal difference is not as good as Arsenal, so Chelsea are still in second place. However, many football commentators have written after the game that Chelsea's staying power is stronger than Arsenal's, and in the near future, Chelsea will win the first place. Similar rhetoric lies with Manchester City. Many experts also say that Manchester City's heritage is far inferior to Manchester United and Liverpool, and it will slowly fall behind in the middle and late of the season, and finally fall behind Liverpool and Manchester United. In this regard, Keegan was very angry, and in an interview with reporters, he angrily denounced nonsense and said that in the next game, he would prove to everyone that Manchester City would be stronger than Manchester United and Liverpool and would continue to lead the standings. Turning his head, Keegan received Sue Long's application for leave, and he had a headache. "I just boasted to the media about Haikau, and as a result, Sue Long's leave of absence came." "Sue, why did you suddenly take a leave of absence?" Keegan said with great dissatisfaction. Sue Long was speechless. "Mr. Coach, I have already said once last week, our Dragon Country Asian qualifiers, the most important game, they need me." Episode 100, World Cup, Changing Destiny. Keegan waved his hand and said, "Well, Sue, you're planning to take a 10-day leave after 12 rounds, right?" "Yes. Yes, no problem, Sue. Thank you, Mr. Coach." But in the game before leaving, in the 12th round of the Premier League, Manchester City played against Arsenal at home, very important. Sue Long nodded and said, "Well, Mr. Coach, I will work hard." On November 5, in the first game of the Europa League group stage, Manchester City played at home to second side Auxerre. With so little money in the Europa League, Manchester City don't care much about Europa League games. Manchester City's goal this season is to keep the top 6 in the league and play the playoffs of the Champions League next season. As long as the Champions League reaches the group stage, there can be 1.7 million in one game. And the Europa League title is only 3.4 million, which is too different. The king of football, Beckenbauer, said that the Europa League is the European Cup for the frustrated, and it is of course good to be able to enter the next round. After all, mosquitoes are also meat. But consider that November 7th is the 12th round of the Premier League. And the opponent is the League 2 team. So this game is still a training game for reserve teams and youth teams. In the end, Manchester City won 1-0 at home to win the first group stage of the Europa League. This was followed by a 5 p.m. match on November 7th, with Manchester City playing Arsenal at home. Sue Long looked at his achievement points, only 5,000 plus points were left, or did not use simulation. Before kick-off, players from both sides gathered in the center circle and observed a minute of silence for Clough, who died a few days ago. Brian Clough, who led Nottingham Forest to 2 European Champions Cups, is England's legendary coach. Speaking of which, Manchester City's manager Keegan reached the Champions League final as a core player in 1980, when he was beaten by the legendary coach Nottingham Forest. Maybe it's the legendary godhead who always brings bad luck to Keegan. Less than 30 seconds into the opening game, City made a huge mistake. Arsenal's right rib pass captain Dunn was behind him, and Dunn hurried back to catch up, but it was too late. Henry's shot went straight through the fingers of Manchester City goalkeeper David James and into the net. The cheering fans suddenly fell silent. Sue Long also did not expect that the goal would be so fast. Keegan was also speechless on the sidelines. Arsenal's 1-goal lead has left Manchester City very passive. In the 50th minute, Sue Long was pushed down in the penalty area, received a penalty, and scored. The fans cheered at once. The score was equalized and the fans were okay with it. But 10 minutes later, Arsenal reversed the score. Reyes crossed straight from the left into the penalty area, Dunn extended his right foot to block, Ashley Cole got the ball to cut in and shoot low from the outside of his left foot 11 meters in front of goal into the bottom left corner to give Arsenal a 2-1 lead. The score of 2-1 has not changed until the end of the game. In the end, Arsenal beat Manchester City away to Manchester City 2-1 to retain their number 1 position in the Premier League. In the last 3 Premier League matches, Keegan has drawn 1 and lost 2, and has received many doubts. Even Sue Long received a lot of doubts, but Sue Long ignored them, because Sue Long knew very well that at this time, he was indeed not a top shooter. Now the attributes of Su Long are: physical attribute 67, technical attribute 66, spiritual attribute 66. It can only be said that the weak team in the 5 major leagues is the main scorer level, that is, the passing line in the 5 major leagues. In the past 3 months since joining the Premier League, his physical attributes, technical attributes, and mental attributes have improved by 1 point, which can be said to be rapid progress. Sure enough, the top league can help the growth of players. The next day, Su Long took a plane and went directly to the port, and then arrived from the port. Because the final match of the second stage of the World Cup qualifiers is held at the Tianhe Sports Center in Guangqing, the national team will conduct a 5-day training at the Tianhe Sports Center. At this time, the Football Association was meeting to discuss how to deal with Alihan and the old players who opposed Su Long. The top bosses had set a tone before the meeting. That is the core of the young generation, headed by the national power, Su Long. For what Jiao Guidance said before, what to say as a whole, not a star, it is simply nonsense. The last game did not want Su Long, did not want Sun Jihai, and the result was 0-1 to lose the game. Those high-level executives who said Su Long was nothing remarkable, as well as old players, suddenly became collectively dumbfounded. If you don't call Su Long back, can Jiao guide you to put on your jersey and play? The highest-level big guy can't understand how to understand that when Jiao coach was a player, Niu Bai was not good. It can be said that he was the #1 defender in Asia, and I heard that there are Dragon Country characters based on him in a certain football comic of Hajime. How to retire and become a coach. After becoming a coach, just pull your crotch. If it weren't for the honor and relationship before Jiao Guidance, there would have been no Jiao Guidance for a long time. Before, the big guy situation was already precarious. If it hadn't been for the Asian Cup triumph that saved his life, he would probably have stepped down soon, and now Arihan is another 0-1. The big guy feels that there is a ghost inside the Football Association and wants to frame himself. Now there's the last game left. If the number of goals is not enough, he will have to step down. At this time, the top bosses can only hold meetings to solve the problem. If the problem can't be solved, then solve the person. In the end, the meeting served its purpose. These senior Football Association executives want to keep their jobs, so they sacrifice Alihan and those old players of the national football team. In Tai was only the head coach of the national youth team before, and now he is directly the head coach of the national football team. The players recruited in the last game are all young generations. Old players over the age of 27 have basically not been recruited, especially those who have conflicts with Su Long before. Because the Football Association has been coordinated, this year's national football team, with Su Long as the core, this is beyond doubt. With the high-level Shangfang sword, In Tai was not afraid, and he could do whatever he wanted. When Su Long arrived at the Tianhe Sports Center, it was just in time for the first day of training. Coaching Tai was talking to the players about tactics, and when he saw Su Long coming, he immediately stopped. The players saw Su Long coming, and they all looked over. Su Long. Brother Dragon. Some of them were a few years older than Su Long, and they couldn't help but call Brother Long. Su Long was a little surprised. The people in the team this time felt a lot younger. After entering the team, Su Long knew that it was In Tai who resisted the pressure. In the last game, there were no players from the older generation, all of them were players of the younger generation. Among them, including the former national football first scorer Mao Hao, did not enter the national team. Su Long could only say that Coaching Tai had courage. Coaching Tai smiled and said, "This is also because of the support of the superiors, Su Long. This game, we still use you as the offensive core to organize the tactics. Jingji's position moves forward, as the fulcrum forward. This tactic was learned from OE." After In Tai learned that Su Long was going to start in the next game, he began to study what kind of tactics were most suitable for Su Long and the current national football team. When Jingji heard that he could form a forward combination with Su Long, he was very excited, which was really rare. On November 13, Manchester City played penultimate Blackburn at home and were forced to draw. Su Long shook his head helplessly. He was forced to level before he left, or the penultimate promotion team, Manchester City, did not give a. Captain Dunn was also injured during the game. Su Long made a phone call to care about it, and Dunn was a little depressed and asked Su Long when he would return to the team. Soon, the time came to November 17, when the Dragon Country team played against the Hong Kong team at the Tianhe Sports Center. This is the last match of the second round of the World Cup Asian qualifiers group stage now. Kuwait and Dragon Country have accumulated 12 points at the same time, and the two teams have the same record of each other, since the rules only allow the team that wins the top spot in the group to advance to the quarterfinals. If the Dragon Country wants to qualify, it must strive for more goals in the match against Hong Kong and Hong Kong. Reverse the goal difference behind Kuwait to be able to press the opponent to achieve promotion. For example, Kuwait scored 3 goals in this game, then the Dragon Country team will score 6 goals. Su Long remembers very clearly in the memory fragment that Dragon Kingdom regrettably failed in a 7-0 situation. Then it says at least 8-0. The result of this match determines whether Dragon Kingdom can enter the quarterfinals of the World Cup Asian qualifiers. Su Long felt that for the sake of safety, 10-0 would be enough. In the pre-match locker room, head coach Tai said to the players, "In this game, we are determined to win. The opposite port team is not expected to resist either. We have to score more than 2 goals more than Kuwait." Su Long listened quietly and did not refute it. It wasn't until he came out of the players' tunnel that Su Long said to the starter, "We don't care how many goals Kuwait scores, we just need to score as much as we can in this game. It's too passive to count how many balls the other side has, scoring him 10 goals in the first half and 10 goals in the second half, and that's it." Immediately someone said, "Is this too much to give face to the Hong Kong team?" Su Long hee. "If the number of goals is not enough, then the World Cup cannot be scored. Is it useful to talk about more face? Well, since Su Long said that, I will definitely cooperate with you." Jing Ji first expressed his position. "Well, Su Long, you can score. Leave the rest to us." Su Long smiled and said, "It doesn't matter who scores, we have to play the kind of coordination we did in training, okay?" The crowd nodded. Su Long is very clear that it is not good to score alone and bring the whole team together, which is the most important thing. This is CCTV5, I'm Zhang Jun. I'm Lu Jianhong and welcome to the final match of Group C of the World Cup Asia qualifiers. The match between Dragon Country and Hong Kong is now won. This game is a focus battle. Whether our Dragon Country team can advance to the next round of qualifiers, it depends on this game. For this reason, Su Long also deliberately rushed back from England to participate in this game. Yes, although I think Su Long came back to kill the chicken with a dragon-slaying knife, but when Su Long returned, my heart was indeed a little stable. Goal. Su Long scored. Oh my god, we're still chatting. It was only 1 minute after the opening, Su Long scored and